Hi YouTube, it's Willow here, and this is an update video on my recovery from fluoroquinolone antibiotic poisoning. I was poisoned by ciprofloxacin, which is produced by Bayer Corporation, which has just gobbled up Monsanto. So we basically have two of the most evil and injurious corporations in the world joining forces. I will talk a little bit about that at the end of the video because this merger, I believe, is actually backfiring on Bayer and is having the opposite effect of what they had hoped. Anyway, I was poisoned by ciprofloxacin in December 2009. So I have been on this recovery path for almost 9 years now, which is kind of shocking to me, to be quite honest. It's a little bit of a blur. I was prescribed Cipro for an incredibly mild urinary tract issue. I never should have been prescribed Cipro for this issue, and fluoroquinolone antibiotics should never be prescribed as first-line antibiotics for minor infections. And in fact, after 30 years of injuring people and full-on murdering people with these drugs, with the misprescription of these drugs, the labels have just finally been updated in both Canada and the US to say that fluoroquinolone should never be prescribed as first-line antibiotics for minor infections because they are far too dangerous to be used in those cases. However, that is exactly how fluoroquinolone antibiotics have been used for decades now, for 30 years now. They have killed at least tens of thousands of people, probably in the hundreds of thousands. They have long-term debilitated and injured millions of people with these drugs. Now, Bayer Corporation puts out Cipro and Avalox. Those are the two name brands of that corporation. Johnson & Johnson, the baby company, puts out Levaquin, which is another deadly and debilitating fluoroquinolone antibiotic. There are also other name brands like Floxin, Noroxin, and there are also a number of different generic versions of these drugs. And so I would just beg of you to do research before you put those pills in your mouth, because if I had done that, I would probably be in a different situation than I am today. However, I am here also to say that there is hope for recovery. Recovery for me is an ongoing process. I would call it a moderate severe reaction to Cipro. Again, I took 3 pills. They were 1,000 milligrams each. So again, they were way too strong for the situation that I had. You know, what the doctor should have advised me to do is go home, drink a bunch of filtered water with lemon juice in it. Don't drink alcohol, don't eat sugar, don't eat any processed foods. And if it doesn't get better in a few days, you know, come back, basically. That's all that it would have required. Uva ursi herb is a natural diuretic that could have cleaned it out very easily without any of this. But what happened to me was the same thing that has happened to millions of other people who have been prescribed fluoroquinolone antibiotics, mostly erroneously, which is that we have been brought into a living hell. And I'm no longer in that living hell. So I'm just going to say that for the people that are in the most acute and horrific reactions right now, please don't give up hope, okay? Because I'm here to tell you that you can have a meaningful life. You can get a great deal of function back. You can improve things considerably, okay? Now, there is an actual name for what happens to us when we've been poisoned by these drugs, and it is called fluoroquinolone antibiotic toxicity syndrome. And you know, this, even just knowing the name for it is really helpful, because for so long, for decades now, we have not been believed by the medical establishment. Doctors, pharmacists, et cetera, and the drug companies themselves have tried to convince us that we can't possibly be experiencing what we're experiencing. It definitely wasn't the drug that did this, etc. It was most certainly the drug that did this. I know it was the drug that did this because this reaction happened immediately after I took the third and final pill of Cipro. So yes, it's absolutely a thing. So fluoroquinolone antibiotic toxicity syndrome is a grouping of probably 50 symptoms that are all associated with this level of poisoning in your body. And these reactions happen differently for different people. Some people have an acute reaction immediately after taking the drugs. Other people don't have reactions for even like months or maybe even over a year afterwards. So they really don't necessarily know what's happening to them until they're able to stem it back to the antibiotics that they were given. But for me, it happened immediately, and I was in immediate hell, literal hell. I have a list here just so I don't forget. These are just the main symptoms that I experienced. There were other ones that popped up over the course of time, but basically the primary symptoms that I experienced was first of all over tendon weakness and pain. Basically, what fluoroquinolone antibiotics do is they break down your tendons and your connective tissue. As horrific as that sounds, that's exactly what they do. So I had pain and dysfunction and weakness all over my body. Tendon rupture is one of the hugest things that goes on. It was the first black box warning that was put on these drugs, was that tendon rupture was one of the potential side effects. And tendon ruptures that require repeated surgeries, and tendon ruptures that also don't heal properly, okay? Because what fluoroquinolone antibiotics do, fluoroquinolones are infused with fluorine, which is basically like fluoride, okay? It's like the chemical component of fluoride. So it's a known poison, a known neurotoxin, a known bad substance to be put in our bodies. And what happens is that it damages the mitochondria and the cells. And the mitochondria are basically what help the cells to heal and regenerate and replicate themselves. So when you're injured by a fluoroquinolone and your mitochondria are damaged, you don't heal like a normal person heals, okay? And that's what a lot of people don't understand about this syndrome, is that, yes, if a normal person did this, this, and this, they would heal. Their body would heal. They would get better. End of story, right? But when you've been injured and poisoned by a fluoroquinolone, your body does not heal in the same ways as it once did. So again, it kind of breaks your body down at the seams. I could not put weight on my Achilles tendons, so I was basically housebound, and I had to walk around my apartment on my hands and knees. That's how I had to get around. Blinding migraines where I could barely lift my head off the pillow. And this was constant. They were constant for months. And then I still had, pretty brutal headaches for a number of years afterwards. But blinding, unremitting headaches for the first chunk of months. Intense pressure in my head. So in addition to the pain and the migraine, it felt like my head was in a vice. Not pleasant. Extreme light sensitivity. So basically, even looking at my computer caused pain. Sunlight was terrible. So, you're basically you're in a dark hole, literally, because you have this situation going on. My eyes weren't lining up, if that makes sense. I don't know how else to explain it. Even now, I can't give someone direct eye contact because my eyes don't line up in the same way that they used to, which is creepy. I was seeing, when I closed my eyes, I was seeing flashing lights, almost like there was a strobe light right there. Shapes, colors, things swirling around. So like visual hallucinations, okay? I was having auditory hallucinations. So hearing things that weren't going on weren't really going on. Tinnitus, ringing in the ears, uncontrollable crying. And this is a neurological effect that happens. This is also seen in stroke victims. Okay. So it's neurological damage that just literally causes uncontrollable crying. So you're not just crying because this is a terrible and terrifying situation. You can't stop yourself from crying. Okay. Extreme crushing exhaustion. And I mean extreme crushing exhaustion. If I crawled to the bathroom and back, it would take me a couple hours to recover from that. Okay. I was bedridden for the first number of months, completely bedridden for the first number of months of this reaction. My whole body felt poisoned. So it felt like my body felt like it was almost like ringing. There was a fight or flight kind of response, like an anxiety kind of response going on. Extreme food sensitivities. So the foods that I was eating were causing my symptoms to escalate dramatically. I could barely eat. I lost 30 pounds in 3 weeks because I could literally barely eat. Not only could I barely drag myself to the kitchen to, and my arms, the tendons in my arms were so weak that I could barely prepare food for myself. I literally just couldn't eat food. I couldn't tolerate foods. Let's see. Constant morbid and suicidal thoughts coursing through my brain. And this was a chemical reaction, okay? There was also severe chemical depression. And this is stuff that isn't situational suicidal thoughts and situational depression. This is caused by the drug. It's a chemical reaction that just sits on you relentlessly. So constantly having the worst possible thoughts, the worst possible fears running through your head, constantly having suicidal thoughts running through your head that like, I'm ruined, my life's ruined, there's no hope, there's no future, the only out is ending it, so constantly. Muscle twitches. That's another thing that happened. Later on, so after the acute reaction, I also experienced peripheral neuropathy. So peripheral neuropathy is black box number 2 for fluoroquinolones. And peripheral neuropathy is just as horrific as tendon ruptures. It is an inflammation of the nerves caused by this type of poisoning. And it causes all over body pain. It almost feels like you're on fire from the inside out. You just have this radiating pain all throughout your body. And there are people who are in constant pain because of these drugs. And, that falls firmly on these corporations who have promoted these things and, set this multi-million, hundreds of millions of dollars of advertising dollars and PR machine to brainwash doctors and physicians and pharmacists into prescribing these and dispensing these as first-line antibiotics when they are horrifically dangerous drugs. Okay. Cellulitis infections. So this came up later on in the process. Cellulitis is an infection of the skin. And so this was related to food sensitivities. What I found out was, in particular, dairy and grains, I had to cut completely out of my diet because they would cause cellulitis infections on my face. And it would start small. It would start off with like a little small patch, and it would grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And the first time this happened, I was obviously terrified of the mainstream medical establishment and of taking antibiotics. So I tried to treat it naturally with oil of oregano, garlic oil, things like that. And it spread until it covered half of my face, and it was starting to go up into my eye. And that's when I finally said, okay, I need to go and get some antibiotics for this, or see what I need to do with this. Just FYI, I took a penicillin derivative called amoxicillin, and I did not have any bad side effects from amoxicillin as long as I took it with food. Okay. Debilitating back pain and dysfunction related to food sensitivities. So one thing that can happen with fluoroquinolone poisoning is a condition that's called prediabetes. And yeah, this is terrifying. I get that, you guys. It's scary for me too. And that is basically where your body starts kind of rejecting sugars and starches, or it can't process sugars and starches very well. And what happened was, what actually triggered the most severe issues was starting to drink chlorinated water again, which was a big no-no, and I'll go into that a little bit later, which caused, just severe back pain, severe debilitating back pain. So, long story short, these things are nasty, nasty, nasty mofos, and they should only be used in cases of life and death. So if someone has tried all other safer alternatives and they're on the verge of dying from an infection, that's when, these could potentially be utilized, right? But if they're only used in life and death situations, that doesn't make the big bucks for these corporations, right? So what these corporations have done is, knowing the damage that they're doing, they've kept pushing these drugs and advertising these drugs and pushing these drugs as first-line drugs. And they've, so they've made all their money because these drugs are being prescribed for minor infections, minor prostatitis, minor urinary tract infections, minor sinus infections, all this kind of thing. So this is literally criminal activity. They have debilitated and murdered countless people through these practices. And let's not mince words about it. That's exactly what these corporations have done. Okay, so the process of recovering for me has been 9 years long, and it continues to this day. It will stretch on probably for my entire life. But like I said, I'm here to tell you that, as horrific a situation as I was in, there has been dramatic improvement. Okay. And I do believe that over a long enough timeline, I'm 9 years in, guys, I'm 9 years in. So, this is a marathon, not a sprint. For some people, it might be a sprint, and they will quickly get over it. But if you're having a moderate to severe reaction like I've had, it's probably going to take years. Okay. And it's also going to take diligent effort on your part. So, what I'm going to go into now is the things that have helped me in my recovery. Okay. Now, the number one thing that has helped me in my recovery is working with my diet extremely diligently. Okay. So I have been in a process of refining my diet and figuring out which foods cause worse symptoms and which foods help me to feel better over this 9 years. And so I've had different diets. I've tried different diets. There's been an ongoing process going on. So one of the other things that can happen when you have been badly affected by antibiotics, and this can go for any antibiotic, not just fluoroquinolones, is candida, because it not only kills the bad bacteria in your body, it kills the good bacteria in your body and in your digestive tract. And then what happens is yeast cells, candida, kind of overrun the system, because the good bacteria aren't there to sort of balance off the yeast. So candida has been a problem for me as well to deal with through diet. So the diet that I'm on right now is primarily vegetables, as many organic vegetables as possible. I grow my own garden. I buy as many organic vegetables as I can afford, but it is pricey to eat organic. But as much as possible, I either eat my own produce or I eat organic produce. Okay, so vegetables, organic eggs, nuts, a little bit of meat that is produced up to organic standards. You do not want to eat conventionally produced meat, just FYI, and a little bit of fruit as well. And that's literally it. So the list of things that I can't eat is longer than the list of things that I can eat. So I am on a diet that involves no grains, no dairy, no caffeine, no refined sugar, no alcohol, no processed foods, no soy. I had to cut out legumes and beans because I started having the bad reactions to starch. What else? I don't eat seafood I don't eat seafood, period. Basically due to the state of the world's oceans, but in particular due to Fukushima fallout. That's a huge issue that people should also be aware of. So very, very pristine diet that I'm on. And so when I started having the candida issues, I started looking into, how to cure this candida problem, this yeast overgrowth, and which basically causes like itchiness, rashes, digestive problems, depression, because you're just your gut's not doing good things, and basically what everyone was saying on the internet was low carb, almost to the point of no carb. Okay, so I tried to adopt this diet. I tried to add in these antifungals like oil of oregano and coconut oil and all of these types of things. But what happened was my hormones went completely out of whack. I stopped menstruating. I was feeling cold and exhausted all the time. Just feeling terrible all the time. So my hormones were just all crazy. And I started realizing, okay, well, it's got to be this low carb diet. So I have to start bringing carbs back into my diet. So now what I'm on is a moderate carb diet. So I will say there are, like I said in a previous video, this low carb craze is almost like a cult, okay? This keto craze, okay? I'm not saying that keto doesn't work for some people, but I'm saying it is not an across the board solution for people, and it is quite dangerous. They actually did a study on teenage girls. They put teenage girls on a low carb diet, and I believe it was something like 45% of them had menstruation difficulty, including complete cessation of menstruation. So this is a known issue, and I would say probably for women in particular to watch that. So like I said, I'm on a moderate carb diet right now. Most of my carbs come from potatoes, fruit, and I can also eat plain popcorn that's popped in coconut oil and sea salt. So that's kind of like my treat. Yeah, treat. It is a treat, but I mean, it's almost kind of a little bit of a sad treat. But I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful I can even have that. So, but then again, so the carbs have to be very carefully regulated, because if I eat too many carbs, I start having symptoms, and if I eat too few carbs, I start having symptoms. So there's a balance to be reached here. Okay, so I'm not suggesting that this diet is for everyone, but what I'm saying is that a whole foods diet, and as much organic as possible and as much vegetables as possible. I would say that's, not as much vegetables as possible, obviously, but a great deal of vegetables, including leafy greens. That's what I think could really help people. And if you can't eliminate processed foods, alcohol, refined sugar, soy, etc., just cut way down on it, okay? Again, conventionally produced meat is going to be toxic to your system most likely. If you can get away with eating it, you're lucky. Farmed fish and shrimp and things like that nature, also, they're often produced with antibiotics in the water, so they can cause horrific relapses, okay? Just FYI. So very, very careful. Okay, so moving on from the diet is water. Water is a crucial situation as well, because our water is very contaminated these days, including with chlorine. Chlorine is actually something that kills the good bacteria in your body as well, and it's also a toxin, but it's something that we've kind of accepted as, in our water, and harmless for people. It's not harmless for me. So the worst relapse that I've ever triggered was when I moved to a new area. And, I just got a little lackadaisical, and I found out that there wasn't added fluoride to the water. So I decided to give it a try, to just try to drink the tap water, even though I knew it was chlorinated. And it caused a horrific reaction. Peripheral neuropathy like I had never experienced before. Again, the debilitating back issues, debilitating digestive issues, energy problems, etc. So what I got was a Berkey filter. So it's Berkey, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. It's that silver thing right there. That's the water filter. And what you do is you pour the water in the top, and then it filters through, and it gets rid of antibiotics, all kinds of pharmaceuticals, chlorine, heavy metals, even radioactive fallout. So that's a huge one. I also added, you have to buy separate filters to get rid of fluoride and, is it arsenic? I think arsenic. So I actually have a kind of a dual system of filters going on there. I also got a chlorine filter from the same place, from Berkey, for my shower head, because showers are, because it's hot, warm water, hot water that you're, dosing yourself with. The chlorine is, you're breathing in the chlorine, you're taking the chlorine through your system. So if you really want to be careful about chlorine as a toxin, you have to also think about that. So, and I will say these are pricey, but the Berkey filter, the main Berkey filters will last one person about 7 years. The fluoride filters last about 2.5 years, and the shower head for one person lasts about 2.5 years as well. And for me, it has been necessary, like hugely necessary to filter my water. Now, the good thing about the good thing about a Berkey filter in comparison to reverse osmosis, I used to drink reverse osmosis water with minerals added back in, but I don't know how well those minerals that are added back in are absorbed into the body, or what minerals they are, etc. So the good thing about a Berkey filter is that it doesn't strip the minerals out of the water the way that reverse osmosis water does. So, again, you can look into that, but the quality of your water is really important. It has to be high quality, as many toxins out of it as possible, including chlorine and definitely fluoride, because fluoride is a known, obviously a known trigger. Rest. Okay. This is the thing. It took so much rest, so much rest for me to recover from this. There were days, like I said, I was bedridden at the beginning of this for multiple months. And then I was spending a good chunk of time every single day in bed for probably 3 or 4 years after that. But I will say now it's actually fairly rare that I have to spend more than, just a quick rest, or, a lot of days I don't have to rest, I don't have to lie down at all. So that has improved, but at the beginning it took a massive amount of rest. So you just have to sort of accept that you're going to have to curtail your physical activity and baby yourself, treat yourself as well as you possibly can. And yeah, it's kind of depressing and it's kind of isolating to need that much rest and to be in bed that much. But, you just have to kind of keep your spirits up and just remind yourself that you're doing what your body needs. Your body needs time to rest so that it can regenerate as best as it can. Curtailing your physical activity when you're having these types of reactions is also really important. Well, maybe not for everyone, but if you're having any tendon issues, it's important because you can injure yourself really easily. Okay. And again, tendon rupture is one of the black box warning issues on this thing. So, you have to baby yourself on that front too. And this is really hard for athletes. It's really hard for bodybuilders. I get that, but this is the situation, right? Making sure your body is as alkaline as possible, like at a balanced alkaline. You don't want to be too alkaline, but you want to have a balanced alkaline body. Because acidity is basically when these symptoms will flare. And having an acidic body is also a body that can't heal. A body can't heal in an acidic state. Okay. So to alkalize your body, again, you're looking at eating a buttload of vegetables. You're looking at drinking filtered water with fresh lemon juice in it. You can also put a teaspoon or so of baking soda in water and drink that. And you're also looking at, again, eliminating or curtailing, modifying the amount of, for example, meat, dairy, processed foods, sugar, even fruit can cause acidity at a high enough quantity. Okay, so you're looking, and you can do research on alkaline foods and acidic foods, right, on the internet. You're basically looking to alkalize as much as possible, because that's the state where your body can heal. Okay. For me, and I don't want to turn anyone off about this, but if you're a person of spiritual faith, faith in God, okay, faith that there's a reason that you're having this experience. This is a Maya penetrating experience, okay? You are coming into a deeper awareness of reality on this planet, and you are understanding some of the forces that are hurting us and killing us on this planet, okay? It's as straight up as that, okay? Most people are living in a state of Maya, so they're living in a state of illusion, where the pharmaceuticals industry has our best interests at heart. It's out there to help us, right? The doctors always know best. Pharmacists always know best. We can trust everything a doctor gives us as a prescription. We can trust everything a doctor says as far as what's good for us and what isn't. Well, if you've had an experience like this, you will find out that that's really not always the case, okay? In a great many cases, that's not the case. So this is showing you, how to be a little smarter about things, right? It's bringing you to a state of wisdom, including spiritual wisdom about this experience. Again, it's penetrating those layers of Maya, those layers of illusion, and it's bringing you into a deeper understanding of reality. It's also drawing attention to something that needs to be addressed, okay, and needs to be dealt with. And it is, again, this chronic overprescription of horrifically dangerous pharmaceuticals that's causing massive amounts of damage in people. I mean, and it's not just fluoroquinolone antibiotics. Obviously, the opioid crisis is epidemic, monstrous, coincidentally, as the United States government is occupying Afghanistan and the poppy fields, which is where you get the opiates. Anyway, I'm a conspiracy researcher, so whatever. So anyway, just having faith and drawing on your spiritual source can definitely help you to get through. If you don't have spiritual faith, just understanding how tough you are as a person, okay? Understanding that you are going to get through this, okay? And you are going to get through this, and you're going to be tougher, and you're going to be smarter, and you're going to be less apt to just take someone's word for it, to take the doctor's word for it, to take the advertising company's word for it, to take the pharmaceuticals company's word for it. Yeah. Okay, the next thing that helped me was using cannabis medicinally. Okay, and I know this is kind of controversial for people, but I will say that the chemical depression and the constant morbid and suicidal thoughts that were running through my head went on for years. Okay, it was torment. It was literal torment. And I was trying to live as functional life as possible, but I had this monkey on my back because I had these chemical reactions going on in my brain that were both dragging me down into chemical depression and, again, stirring up these morbid and suicidal thoughts that I could not control. They were just sort of there. They were constantly there. And the only thing that got rid of those was using cannabis medicinally. Okay? Using cannabis medicinally brought me back into a state of well-being that I hadn't experienced since prior to taking those 3 little pills. Now, I will say that I also had some ill effects from cannabis use. And cannabis proponents often claim that there are no side effects to cannabis. It's a miracle drug, yada, yada. It is kind of a miracle drug for a lot of different things. Especially, pain is one of the things. Again, it can help with the depression and the chemical morbidity and suicidal thoughts. It can also help with insomnia, and that's a huge one. I never had terrible insomnia, but I know a lot of people have had insomnia. It helped with my anxiety levels because I also had anxiety along with the depression that was caused by the drug. But because it actually is kind of like a relaxing and pleasurable thing to do, it can become a little bit habit forming. And so I started using it more as a pleasurable habit than as a medicine. And so what happened was I started having symptoms, and I did a little bit of research, and I found out that in some people, cannabis use can compromise your liver enzymes. And that's what started happening with me. So I started having more food sensitivities. I started having like little bits of cellulitis starting, which was terrifying. Skin eruptions and rashes and stuff like that. All this bloating, didn't feel hungry ever, felt kind of sick to my stomach. All these are symptoms of liver stress, okay? So when your liver is already compromised by this drug, right, by all the poison that's kind of running through your body, and also all the damaged cells that are, that are being processed by your body as well. Something like cannabis use, if it's pushed a little too far, can cause problems. So I will say it's good to use it for a limited amount of time, just until your symptoms subsist, okay? And then if the symptoms start coming back, you can pick it up again, use it a little bit, etc. Energy work, okay? So when this first happened, I went to basically an energy healer, herbologist type of person, and she did an energy treatment on me that helped considerably. It helped very, very much. She also gave me a regime of herbs to take, and I didn't notice maybe that they were hugely effective, but I did notice that it was kind of comforting to feel like you were doing something good for yourself. Other people have had huge success with herbal medicine, but again, I've also had really bad reactions to certain herbs, so you have to really be careful and kind of play that by ear. Magnesium oil. That's another thing that a lot of people with fluoroquinolone damage have claimed is a miracle drug. Like it just instantly made their bodies felt better and got rid of their pain. It didn't have that effect on me, but I do think that it's helpful. So I do use magnesium oil at times. Probiotics, that's another thing that has helped, but I also started having bad reactions to those when I had taken them for too long. So that might be something to take sporadically. It's also really difficult. Well, I found it really difficult to find exactly the right probiotic to take. So what I actually do now is I eat raw sauerkraut, and that has probiotics in it naturally. So I find that the natural form of probiotics I can deal with better. Digestive enzymes. That's another thing that has helped with the digestive problems. But again, they're really powerful, and they're kind of like, I don't know, they kind of make your digestive system supercharged a little bit, and that can kind of be a little overwhelming to the system as well. So I just use digestive enzymes sporadically. I'll use them for a few days and then just stop until I feel like I need to use them again. I use Now brand super enzymes, and those seem to work for me, but it's very individual. Okay, public education and activism, okay? Battling these mofos. That is something that has helped me spiritually, emotionally, to feel like I'm doing something, okay? Like I'm helping other people to either not ever have to experience this hell and this difficulty, or I'm helping people to have some hope that recovery is possible, feeling better is possible. And I'm also fighting to stop these corporations from being allowed to do this, okay? I'm also fighting to educate doctors and the medical establishment and nurses and pharmacists so that they're aware of the dangers of these drugs. And many of them are not. Despite the fact that the labels were updated in 2016 in Canada and the US to say that these should never be prescribed as first-line antibiotics for minor infections, that is exactly how they're continuing to be prescribed in a number of cases. I have had so many people commenting on my video in the past 2 years saying that they've just been poisoned by these things. And it's horrific because it's literally criminal that they're being prescribed as for minor infections at this point, because the labels state clearly on them that that should not be happening. Okay, so we have some work to do. This is why the public education is really important. This is why speaking out, if you have enough energy in you to do it, is really important. Okay, forums. That's another thing. That is a hit or miss thing. So when I was in the most acute phase, I found it way too depressing, actually, to go on Fluoroquinolone forums. There's particularly one on Facebook that's quite large. It has almost 10,000 people. And just the misery and the pain that people were expressing, that I was also feeling, was like too much. So for a long time, I had to just kind of set that aside and do my own research. But as I kind of got better, I started delving into the forums a little bit and picking up different tips, right? Picking up different things to try, different things that didn't work or that caused a worse reaction. Because the thing is, when your body is so sensitized with this stuff, even like a holistic treatment could potentially do more damage to you. It could potentially exacerbate your symptoms. Okay, so you have to be really careful what treatments you take on. Again, what herbs you're taking. You have to monitor your own body very carefully, which leads to the final thing that has helped me, which is acupuncture. And I will say that acupuncture would have been way too intense for me in the first number of years of this reaction. My body was already so overwhelmed with processing and detoxifying and all of that kind of thing that adding acupuncture to it would have pushed me over the edge. I've also seen that massage therapy can sometimes push people over the edge because it releases too many toxins into the body. And you're just, again, your system is just overwhelmed. Your organs are overwhelmed trying to get rid of this stuff. However, because I'm so far, I started getting acupuncture when I was like, 7.5, 8 years into the recovery process. It has worked very well for me at this point. One of the things that it does is it helps with the food sensitivities, and it also helped with my acute back pain that I exacerbated with the chlorinated water. So in combination with filtering my water, cutting my carbs back to this kind of moderate carb zone, cutting certain foods right out of my diet, and getting acupuncture on a regular basis, that has helped me to be way more functional. But I will say, again, this is a really cruel kind of process because you can relapse yourself without even really fully knowing why or what's doing it, So it's somewhat tricky. But I will say that I recently worked 2 weeks in a retail job in an incredibly busy time of the year. I was working at a college bookstore at the beginning of the semester. And so I was on my feet running all day long. I was lifting books, I was lifting boxes. And prior to now and prior to getting the acupuncture treatments, I would not have been able to do that at all. So definitely alternative treatments can help. Now, they're expensive. Some medical plans cover them. I don't have a medical plan because I'm self-employed. But, ultimately, if it works for you, it is worth it. Okay, so that's basically it in a nutshell as far as what has helped me. Now, again, I will reiterate that this is a very individualized process, recovering from fluoroquinolone antibiotic toxicity syndrome, and what helps one person may harm another person. Okay. Some people have said, oh, get out into the sun, get as much sunshine as possible. Well, one of the symptoms I have from fluoroquinolone antibiotic poisoning, and other people do too, is phototoxicity. So that means that you're more sensitive to the sun, and it actually causes negative issues. Skin cancer is more common in people who have been poisoned by fluoroquinolones. Unfortunately, part of that phototoxicity And I myself have had a precancerous mole taken off after being poisoned by fluoroquinolones. So again, getting out into the sunshine may help some people. It may hurt other people, right? The herbal regimes, the alternative treatments, again, they help some people. They don't help other people. Some people have said to soak in Epsom salt baths. Well, at a certain level, Epsom salts cause a bad reaction for me as well. So, like I say, you really have to be very, experimental kind of with your own process. But these are all things that have helped me, and the diet and the water, I would say, above and beyond, are the crucial critical things to work with, okay, and to continue working with. Even like for me, no cheating is allowed at all. Okay. Any cheating will cause problems. So when I hear people complaining about their symptoms, but they're not working with their diet or their water, it's kind of like, well, what do you expect, right? You have to be diligent with this stuff. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks to have to go to a family function or a celebratory function and not be able to eat, or to only be able to eat like, the crudités, the vegetable platter or whatever. It sucks to go out to a restaurant with a group of friends and not be able to eat whatever you feel like. It sucks to not be able to have a few drinks, I'm not saying this is easy, but I'm saying that this is what's given me my quality of life back. And I know that that's the number one thing that I would suggest for anyone who's having this type of issue. Okay. So, the good news. Okay, the good news. And this is some good news, you guys. Talking about Bayer Corporation and the merger between Bayer and Monsanto. So, as I mentioned, Bayer is one of the big players in the fluoroquinolone game, and it also has a number of deadly and debilitating pharmaceuticals, as well as birth control options. Essure is something that has damaged hundreds of thousands of women. They've had a drug called Xarelto that has killed tens of thousands of people, injured tens of thousands more. Trasolol is another one of theirs. Yaz and Yasmin birth control pills have killed many different people. They're much more dangerous than the old school birth control pills. There's just instance after instance, right? Bayer is ultimately a chemical corporation, okay? And what Bayer has just done is it has gobbled up Monsanto, which is primarily a genetically modified organism corporation and a chemical corporation as well. Monsanto produces Roundup herbicide. That's its most popular herbicide. It's the most widespread herbicide in the world right now. And it also produces GMOs, genetically modified organisms, genetically modified seeds that produce plants that can withstand massive doses of Roundup herbicide, okay? GMOs have been found to be carcinogenic, cause organ damage, reproductive damage, digestive damage, DNA changes, immune system suppression. Also, Roundup has been found to basically cause the same issues. Premature death in lab rats that were exposed to even tiny doses of Roundup, even doses that the regulatory agencies say are safe for us to ingest. Okay, so what Bayer believed was that it was going to gobble up Monsanto, and it was going to basically wipe Monsanto's bad reputation clean. And people were just going to forget about what Monsanto has been doing. It was basically like, a total whitewash. Because unfortunately, Bayer is not known as the truly diabolical and evil corporation that it is. It is known more so for that in Germany, where this company is headquartered, but it is not. The true history of Bayer, which I've covered on my blog extensively, is not really known to people. So Bayer thought that it was this big sort of PR whitewash. Well, what's happened is immediately following the merger, there was a massive settlement, a $286 million settlement found through the courts for Dwayne Johnson, who is an ex-school groundskeeper in California, who is unfortunately now dying of cancer caused by chronic Roundup exposure. So he was spraying Roundup on school playgrounds, and this is a widespread practice, constantly, spraying Roundup, and he has unfortunately gotten a very virulent form of cancer from that. So this court kind of had a surprise ruling where it gave this massive settlement to Dwayne Johnson. And now Bayer is responsible for basically all of the crimes against humanity of Monsanto, because it has just gobbled up Monsanto in a $66 billion merger. So not only does Bayer have its own class action lawsuits based on the death and destruction that it has wreaked through its pharmaceuticals and its chemicals, because Bayer also produces chemical herbicides. It did produce GMOs. It sold off its GMO, its Liberty Link GMO division so that it was able to buy up Monsanto. So not only is Bayer going to be dealing with their own lawsuits, they're going to be dealing with Monsanto's lawsuits. And since the Dwayne Johnson case, there's been like hundreds or thousands of more cases that have come forward. And at this time, there are over 8,000 pending lawsuits related to health damage from Roundup exposure. So Bayer has just swallowed up a massive amount of toxic debt, toxic lawsuits from Monsanto. So this merger has actually kind of backfired for Bayer, and there's a very strong chance that we could bankrupt this company. And I would love for people to take to Twitter under the hashtag bankrupt Bayer, because I'm trying to start that as a thing going on. Because this is within reach, you guys, okay? It's within reach. So I would encourage anyone who has the energy and the resources to take this to court, to sue Bayer over fluoroquinolone damage, to go ahead. Because the thing is that with these new black box warnings about tendon rupture and peripheral neuropathy, and with the new labels that clearly in black and white say that these things should never be prescribed as first-line antibiotics for minor infections, if you have been prescribed these drugs, you have a very good case, okay? If you've been prescribed these drugs for a minor infection and you've been injured, you have a very good case. You have a much better case than we ever used to, because as I say, for decades now, so many people have not been believed, okay? And that's horrific. So many people have not been believed by the medical establishment, by the pharmaceuticals corporation. The pharmaceuticals corporations have denied it, even though they were well aware that this was going on. The victims have been screaming about this for decades now. There have been so many adverse reactions, even reported to the authorities, and only at most they estimate that 10% of the actual adverse reactions are reported to the authorities. So there's, multiply the real situation by, 90%. That's how many real adverse reactions are going on. But basically, you guys have a really strong case now, because thank God, someone has some sort of sense and has changed the labels on these things. So, we're really gaining some momentum here, and it's each individual action in aggregate that creates this force that is really going to stop this beast, okay? These beastly corporations who have been putting their own profit and their own market domination over the health and well-being of human beings, over the lives of human beings, because fluoroquinolones kill people, okay? I'm lucky that I'm alive today. I'm lucky that I'm here to do this video, because there are tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people who aren't here. Either they were killed directly because of the systemic damage that was done to their bodies, or they ended up committing suicide because they felt that well, number one, because suicidal thinking is a side effect of these drugs. And like I said, it can hang on for years afterwards. And also, people are in massive amounts of pain. They can't work. They're broke. They're isolated. They're depressed. And this has all been, you know what I mean? This has been created for us by these corporations. And these jackasses have to be held accountable for it, okay? They're killing us. They're hurting us. And it has to be stopped. If an individual, if a human being had murdered, had knowingly caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, or at least tens of thousands of people, if they had knowingly assaulted millions of people, you know, they would be locked up for life. They would, you know, in certain areas, they'd be put to death, you know. And I'm not, you know, I'm not saying I'm a capital punishment fan, but I'm saying this is what would happen if an individual acted in the way that these corporations have acted. So just know that there are a lot of people out there that are fighting. There are a lot of people out there who are never going to give up. I will never give up trying to get justice for the people who've lost their lives and for the people who have been put into a living hell by these corporations for no reason other than corporate greed and the desire to dominate the market with their product. That's literally it. So for anyone who's suffering right now, and I know what this suffering is like. I know how miserable it is. It is literally a living hell. Okay, I know that. I know that's what you're going through. And my heart's with you. I've done a number of different videos on this subject. So if you'd like to delve into it further, I will put links in the comment section to those previous videos that I've done. Just don't give up, okay? Don't give up. Just keep trying. Just know that if you do your part, the universe will do its part, okay? And I know it's hard to get through the day, and I know it's hard to see that there's a future, but I'm living proof. I was absolutely annihilated by this. I didn't think I had a future. I didn't think I was going to continue. I didn't think there was any point to living in the amount of pain and exhaustion and just like horrifying depression that I was in, okay? But there is a point to it. And if you keep fighting, if you say these bastards are not going to get me, okay? They're not going to get me down. I am not going to give them the satisfaction of lying down and curling up into a ball, okay? You can curl up into a ball for a little while, okay? Yeah, because it sucks. But when you have the mojo, when you have the energy, when you have that fight in you, just, you know, just push back. Do whatever you can. And we are going to turn this tide, okay? We are going to take these jackasses down. And I just want you to know that I'm out here fighting for you. I'm out here fighting for me. I'm out here fighting for everyone who's been hurt and everyone who could be hurt by this. And, you know, I need your help, okay? So whatever you can do, just take the smallest of little steps towards pushing back and refusing to be victimized and refusing to continue these victimization cycles that are going on. We all need to take a stand, and that's what we're going to do. So all my best to everyone. My heart is with everyone that's suffering because of this. But just know that we're going to win this.